And hello, welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I am Daren Jaime, and today we'll update you what's happening in and around our borough and New York City. Coming up, we'll discuss the need for comprehensive measures to tackle breast cancer disparities, particularly among African American women. And then later on, we'll talk about the importance of therapy, how one company is actually providing a safe space for people to heal. And then after that, we'll learn about how one not-for-profit is using mindfulness practices for healthy lifestyle choices as well as creative expression. Then we'll sit down with an emerging documentary filmmaker on how they aim to bring to light underrepresented stories of Palestine across the diaspora. Then finally, we'll talk about the upcoming TD5 Borough Bike Tour. More about that a little bit later on in the show, but we want to encourage you, stay tuned because all this and much more is heading away. Right now, we're officially open. And hello, everyone. I am Daren Jaime, and you're now watching Open, a live program that brings the Bronx to New York City straight to you. We also want to welcome our viewers to the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast simultaneously on M&N's channels. You can stay connected to us on all of our social media platforms at BronxNet TV. Well, some things have been going on throughout the course of the past week, and we're going to take you through it with some Bronx updates. And we start off with some medical news, exciting for Montefiore Medical Center. They recently unveiled their breast care center. Our BronxNet reporter, Jonathan Calixto, was there, and he has our story.
The idea about a comprehensive breast center is to create a place where women and men can come who have breast issues.
Montefiore Einstein has unveiled their latest state-of-the-art breast care center with a focus to deliver quicker evaluations and care to residents in the Bronx.
A lot of our programs and a lot of things we've developed are specifically for patients to be able to have their care done in a very coordinated, timely fashion because of their particular demands on their life, because of their disadvantaged situation for many patients.
Among the new patients at this location is Michelle Ely, a Bronxite being treated for her stage 2 cancer diagnosis.
When I went into the room, it was so much love in there. So much love. It was so much. I really have to give the doctors, the staff, the nurses, the receptionists, everyone who hold my hand to the process.
From technology like 3D mammography to pairing patients with a full team addressing nutrition, finances, surgery, all in one location, they are helping each person that walks in feel seen and treated.
Especially in a huge system, it's so important to let the patients feel like they have some control, because otherwise you feel like you're just a number. Everyone has their own individual parenchymal pattern to their breast tissue. And when we're looking at a mammogram, we want to be able to compare to previous. And if patients jump around to different facilities, they're doing themselves harm.
The Montefiore Einstein Breast Care Center is providing resources for men and women both before and after diagnosis in hopes that they too can ring the bell to show that they have beat cancer. Reporting for BronxNet, Jonathan Calixto.
And thank you, Jonathan. In other news, New York State Governor Kathy Hochul is pushing to make to-go drinks a permanent feature. Now, the governor announced her intention to include the to-go drink provision in this year's state budget, set to be revealed on April the 1st. She emphasized the vital role to-go drinks played during the pandemic, acting as a crucial support for the struggling hospitality industry and I should say a cherished delight for consumers. Now, in her 2022 State Address, the governor also specifically mentioned reintroducing to-go drinks to aid bar owners and restaurants. Now, the New York State Restaurant Association has long championed the alcohol to go cause, conducting a 2021 survey revealing 78% of New Yorkers support permanently allowing alcohol beverages to be taken out or with delivery orders. Now, however, everybody is not on board with this plan. Some liquor store owners, as reported by the Post, expressed concerns about its potential impact on their businesses. Additionally, others raised issues related to drinking and driving, as well as public drinking. Well, that's all the time we have for our Bronx updates. We are taking a quick break, but guess what? We got more open when we return.
We can't get anything done in this world that's so interdependent without communication. And certainly community-based media is really the core of that.
You guys do a great service to the city of New York, to the communities within that city, and really for the entire state of New York. Telling the residents firsthand what's happening out there. It's very important that we keep your facility going for as long as possible.
We talk about the Bronx. We talk about it being a borough of opportunities, a global destination. We want to make sure that we create access and opportunity for future generations, creating local jobs, stimulating our economy, giving young people opportunities like internships that will not lead to jobs, but will lead to careers.
And we turn now to health news. While black women have comparably diagnosis rates to non-Hispanic white women for breast cancer, they face a nearly 40% higher risk of mortality. Overall, black individuals have higher mortality rates across most cancers and the shortest post-diagnosis lifespan among all racial ethnic groups. Joining me and spending some time today is the board-certified radiologist at RadNet. We've got Dr. Jason McKellop, and thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Jason.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Hey, well, thank you. And I wish we could have better numbers to talk about, but honestly, there are these disparities that exist. Talk to me about the findings and just your thoughts.
Absolutely. If you look across the board beyond breast cancer, the healthcare outcomes, when you compare African-American women and African-American men, for that matter, to the broader population, turns out to be a lot worse. So let's focus our conversation on breast cancer. Breast cancer happens less frequently in African-American women than it does in their white American counterpart. But despite that decrease in frequency, black women die at a higher rate. So the mortality of breast cancer in African-American women tends to be higher. And the reasons for this are multifactorial. Certainly there's some biological underpinnings of this disparity, but certainly there are social and environmental contributions as well.
When we talk about that, knowing that the mortality rate is higher amongst black women and blacks with regards to this, it's a startling statistic, but yet and still it's very real. How do we deal with this in terms of a couple of things? Number one is detection. When we talk about detection, sometimes detection comes at a late time. How do we deal with the issue of detection?
So technically speaking, there is no, quote, cure for breast cancer, but the closest that we can come to finding a cure is early detection. Finding disease at a smaller size and an earlier stage will equate to the equivalent of a cure for the disease for many women. So it's critical, especially in our African-American population, to have these patients imaged early and often. The average risk woman should start screening at age 40 and on an annual basis thereafter. But if women are at high risk, they could start screening at an earlier age and also get supplemental screening with such imaging studies as breast ultrasound and breast MRI. Just to carry on the conversation about the disease burden in African Americans as it relates to the larger population, African American women tend to be diagnosed with disease at a later stage and at a larger size. In addition to that, the biological makeup of the disease tends to be more aggressive, tends to grow and spread more quickly and be harder to treat. So it's of critical importance that African American women be imaged on a timely basis and repeatedly over time.
We talk about AI and the advancements of AI right now, but there is AI that's available when it comes to even dealing. So talk to us a little bit about AI and artificial intelligence mammography.
So artificial intelligence is this burgeoning topic that we're all talking about in various facets of society. In our world, EBCD, or enhanced breast cancer detection, is the newest technological advancement in imaging the breast, and specifically looking for breast cancer. EBCD is an artificial intelligent algorithm that essentially works in the background. It's an algorithm that looks for cancers. So when a patient comes in, they'll have a mammogram as they normally would, and that mammogram will be interpreted from a radiologist such as myself as it normally would. But with EBCD, there's an added layer of scrutiny. The computer algorithm will look at the imaging study, evaluate the imaging study, and scrutinize that study for breast cancer, and that provides an additional layer of scrutiny for the imaging exam. And what we found by appending artificial intelligence to our imaging paradigm, there's been a 20% increase in the detection of cancers. When you look across various patient demographics, it does so equally. So all races are impacted equally by artificial intelligence, and it's something that is a boon or a boost, if you will, for our ability to detect breast cancers, and certainly will be an advancement for women of all demographics, but especially important in this category that we're discussing today, in African American women, as the improvements have been seen equally across the board.
Yeah, and we know traditionally it's been said in African American communities and in non-white communities, there's always this questioning and this issue of health and health care, not really trusting going to the doctor. Some just don't have the means. And talk to me about how this plays out, because as we see these numbers and we see this this discrepancy in the numbers, some can attribute to the fact of care and really seeking consistent care, hearing from your doctor, and many times it's way after the fact before a diagnosis is made, but possibly could have been avoided.
Yeah, certainly there are social determinants of outcomes when it comes to breast cancer in African American women. For reasons that are beyond probably the scope of our conversation today, there has been some seed of distrust as it relates to the African American community and healthcare, and because of those transgressions in the past, there may be patients who are unwilling to seek medical care in a screening or a preventative way, much less when it's absolutely needed in an urgent or a more acute fashion. And for that reason, that provides another barrier for healthcare in the African American population. And I think the key to addressing this is education. Knowledge is power, and the more that African American women know about themselves, their health, and preventative interventions such as screening mammograms, I think that goes a long way in terms of addressing the disparity in outcomes as it relates to breast cancer mortality.
Yeah. We also know that Black women are more affected by aggressive subtypes, and we talk about TNBC and inflammatory breast cancer. Break that down for us.
That's correct. So when you look at the biology of cancer tumors and the cell types, triple negative breast cancers are more prominent or more common in African American women who are diagnosed with breast cancer. What this basically means is, on the surface of the cells of these tumors, there are various markers. Two of them are related to hormones, progesterone and estrogen, and another is Herceptin. These are three markers, or cell surface markers, that occur on the surface of these tumors. And these provide treatment targets for medical therapy or medical oncology. In triple negative breast cancers, there are no receptors. And that makes the disease harder to treat. There are just no treatment targets for our medical therapeutics to attack, if you will. In addition to that, when you look at the outcomes of these tumors, they tend to be more aggressive and harder to treat, as I'd mentioned, and are associated with increased mortality. So looking at the population, African-American women are in a disparate way more prone to getting triple-negative breast cancers than their white American cohort.
Yeah. Dr. McKellop, we're going to have to leave it there. Dr. Jason McKellop telling us a little bit of what we need to know, board-certified radiologist of RadNet. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Well, now, if you want more information, please visit the website, breastlink.com, and then also radnet.com. We encourage you, please don't go anywhere. We got more open coming up right after this.
Hey everyone, it's your girl Kat from the Kitty Rose Lifestyle, also from The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray every week right here at BronxNet, Saturdays at 11 p.m. Wow, 30 years. 30 years of BronxNet public access television. I'm a girl from Brooklyn and came to the Bronx 25 years ago, started my journey on BronxNet on public access television in 2016, and BronxNet is where I got my start. BronxNet, I feel like, is a home away from home. They support all of my endeavors, and I wouldn't have been able to be on any of the other channels if it wasn't for the fundamentals that I learned right here at my start here at BronxNet. So I am so appreciative. My son says I should stop telling people I'm from Brooklyn because I've been here now, Bronx Strong, for 22 years. So I'm so grateful, and I wish you much success in 30 years, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30 more, because public access is necessary so that people like myself can have a voice. Yes, BronxNet, it's your girl Kat from Kitty Rose. Check me out every Saturday at 11 p.m. right here, Channel 68, The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. Mwah.
And we are back. Our next guest thrives on witnessing personal growth through some meaningful conversations. Now, with a decade of experience in talk therapy, their commitment to destigmatizing mental health has really paved the way for a successful career. And joining me now is the founder of Counseling the Comfort, Quinelle Hickman. And thank you so much for being with us. Hey.
Hi, hello. How
are you?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. Thank you for having me.
Glad to have you. And glad to have this conversation because, you know, one of the things we talk about, particularly in Black and brown communities, is the whole issue of therapy, counseling. It's almost like, you know, you're the bad person.
Yeah, like you're crazy.
Right. But the reality is you don't have to be crazy to seek therapy.
Yeah, yeah.
Give me some thoughts about basically therapy right now and some of the misconceptions.
Yeah, so some of the misconceptions are that you're crazy or you have to only talk about bad things, right? And that's not the reason. You could have a great day. You could just really want to flesh out some of your thoughts. It could just be a safe space where you want to have somebody reflect back to you, you know, what you're thinking. And so it doesn't have to be that you are crazy or going through something terrible.
Right. So you've been a therapist now for about 11 years?
Yeah, this will be my 11th year.
Wow. How has it changed actually down through the years? I mean, we just came out of COVID and obviously, and I don't want to say we're out of it because for people who still are there, like, you know, keep it real.
Right.
But the COVID pandemic, not at the height of it, but truly coming out of the height of it to where we are today. How have things transcended through years?
Yeah, I think that we're just so much more open to therapy and talking about it now. And there is still, you know, for the Black and brown community and some communities too, there's still a little bit of trepidation. Like, I don't really know if I want to, but I think just talking about it, talking about going to therapy, talking about the fact that something could be potentially wrong and that there's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist, I feel like that came out of COVID or the pandemic, and that's been a beautiful thing to see. A lot of education.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any common themes in the things that people are talking about with you?
Everybody's a narcissist, and everybody is toxic, and depression, anxiety, and stress has been something that I think is more prevalent. And I don't know that and when I say prevalent, I really just mean in terms of talking about it because, you know, it's been a thing, it's been there, but people have been, I think, just more quiet about it.
What about trauma? Because I think when we talk about looking at COVID, that's been traumatic.
Yeah.
The opportunity to watch George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, watching these play out right on television.
Yeah, in front of us.
Traumatic.
Very traumatic. I do think that trauma is another thing that we have discussed a bit more. And if I'm being honest, I hope I don't get canceled for this, right? But I think that there was a time where talking about trauma in relation to the Black community was a bit more mainstream, and I think that was closer to those events. Right now, I think that it has somewhat changed, and it's almost kind of gone back to what status quo was before the pandemic. Right. But I think in Black and brown communities, there's been a lot more talk, around, well, there's always been talk, right? So. Right.
But I think you raise a good point, because when you talk about that, like during then it was heightened, we're talking about it. Now it's like we're on to the next thing, and I don't want to call that guy's name out, but you spend more time talking about him than about the trauma, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, that's it. What about couples? How are you seeing the family dynamic? Are you seeing a lot of couples come across the stage?
Yeah, so I love to work with couples. Those are like my favorite people to work with outside of depression and anxiety. But couples and communication has been really, really like beating down my door, because it's like, no, talk to him, talk to her, especially after a lot of couples during the pandemic. It was new for dating apps, and so people were just moving a little bit faster, right? Because there's nothing that they could do besides like hang out, and so people were moving in together sooner. Right. Or you had couples at each other's necks, right? You've seen a lot of breakups during the pandemic, right? And so communication has been one of the main things that I think has had people really like, I need to get into therapy right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I had somebody I know, so I had to go to therapy because I had to really find out that I'm living with somebody. And we're always going, but now we had to actually live together through the pandemic. And there were a whole lot of couples who really struggled, because this was the first time of really being able to intersect like that. Right.
And I think it was so interesting that it happened in 2020, because it was like, oh, now we have very clear vision about who we are talking to, who we're living with. Like, oh, wait, do I even know you for real? Right. Yeah, so that was interesting.
Another issue that I think people talk about a lot is that whole work-life balance, right? And I'm sure that's a topic of conversation that comes across your desk, right? Maybe I'm working too hard, maybe I'm not enjoying my life, maybe this, maybe that. First of all, as you hear it, how common is it?
It's very common, especially Beyonce, You Won't Break My Soul, right? The whole working and overworking, and then working from home, working remotely. I think that's when companies really started to take advantage of employees. And so it's extremely common. I think at least if I see 10 people in a day, at least 9 of them are talking about work stress.
So how do you guide them through that whole place of balance? Because I know in therapy, the job is to get us to talk, but really we're looking for some, some help here.
Yeah, so in terms of work-life balance, it's more about setting boundaries. So that's the work that I end up doing, because it's how do you say no? How do you say, I'm not able to take this on, I don't have the capacity, and really actually have your actions follow that? Because you can say, oh no, I'm not able to do that, but then you're staying late after work, right? So it's kind of like, we're not paying attention to you because you're going to do it anyway. Yeah.
So you have a great toolbox here of resources, and I know you've got also an event coming up.
Yes, yeah. So speaking about the couples and speaking about the people that I've been seeing over the pandemic, so loneliness really set in for real. And so out of that bred 2 events that I had last year called The Right Way to Date. So it was dating panels talking about what do you do, where do you go, if you're online, how do you approach people? So those are things I love to talk about. But at the events, it was like, well, no, for real, where do we go? Right? And so I was like, you know what, you don't have anywhere to go? You're tired of the dating apps? Now that we're out of the pandemic, well, we're a little bit, it's less intense, right? So like, I'm outside, but I don't really want to talk to people like that. I don't know if all the women are like, I got it, I don't need you to talk to me, right? So now I scheduled a speed dating event, right? So Sunday, the 25th, so that's this Sunday coming up. Age range is going to be 28 to 45. And so the men and the women, actually the women are sold out, so we need the men to come on and purchase the tickets. Right. And so what we're going to do is have a game night in the beginning, and then we'll have the speed dating portion. So it'll be 5 to 6 minute dates. All the men will move around, the women will stay seated. And when you match, you get a planned date, right? So as soon as you match, I will plan the date for you, no problem. And so you don't have to worry about the stress of planning the date. But this is more dates for less money and less time, so it's really a no-brainer.
So when people do the speed dating, what's the response like?
So there are people who really genuinely enjoy speed dating because they get more dates, more time, right? More dates, less time, less money, right?
Right.
And there are people that thrive in these settings, but then there are some people who they want to be there, but there's just like a little bit of trepidation because it's like, what do I talk about, right? So I give you guided questions. I am trained to build connection in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Right.
So I'm giving you guided questions. I'm doing icebreakers so that you ease into where you need to be.
So if I'm going out with somebody and they ask me how many dates I've been on, I tell them like I've been through 10. I'm like, but it was speed dating. Just saying, how does that play out?
But what do you mean? Like if you're just meeting somebody else who was not
I
interested
met somebody else and they said, well, how many dates have you been on? Wow, I actually went on like 7.
I mean,
7, I was actually speed dating.
Right, that's an interesting conversation starter though. That'll throw somebody off. And they'll see that you're open if you went to speed dating.
All right. As long as you got, all right. Thank you so much, Quinelle, for being with us. Now listen, so tell people about the date and time of the event again. I'm gonna give it.
Yes, so it is this Sunday at 4 p.m. It's from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. It is in Queens, New York. And if you want tickets, you just go to www.counselingtocomfort.com.
All righty. Thank you so much for being with us,
Thank
Quinelle
you.
Hickman. She is the founder of Counseling to Comfort. Now, again, if you do want more information, want to find out about that event, go ahead, find out. Visit the website, counselingtocomfort.com. We encourage you, don't go anywhere. We got more open coming up right after this.
Only 57% of New York City high school students are college ready by their senior year. "55% of high school graduates either have no plans to attend college or are uncertain that they will ever attend. "34% of young adults don't go to college because they can't afford it. Discover what's possible. BronxNet's education programs, internships, and opportunities help engage and inspire Bronx youth and beyond to pursue their passions. Be a part of the BronxNet family. Whether you're interested in our shows, joining a class, or donating to support our mission, visit BronxNet.org to learn more.
And welcome back. Urban Yoga Foundation is a not-for-profit organization educating and empowering communities to be proactive about issues affecting their health. Now, for over 20 years, the organization has served more than 600,000 people across the globe by designing programs providing mindful and integrative wellness tools. And we've got sharing with us information, the CEO of Urban Yoga Foundation, Ghylian Bell. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and so having this conversation, it's not just about yoga, but it's more to it than just that, right?
Yes, it is.
Take it away.
I appreciate you saying that and starting there. When I started this organization, it was actually just to create a bond with me and my daughter. As a single mother, I needed something I didn't have to pay for to connect with her. And yoga, which is actually an integration of mindfulness throughout, was that practice. And learning about this practice of yoga, which actually means to unite, to come together. So imagine relearning, just like we're doing now about a lot of things in history, understanding the history of yoga. And I teach that through history. I teach yoga as developing from Africa with angles, sacred geometry, coming from Kush, and the movement out of Africa to Indus Kush, Hatha Vinyasa. And the other side of that Afro-Asiatic plane is Tao, Muay Thai, Tai Chi, Qigong. And on the top of that, Yucatan, Mexican, Mayan wisdom, Native American wisdom. So I teach that all these cultures actually have the energy and the vibration of what yoga stands for. The mindfulness, the integrative wellness, the movement of the body and the mind. And it separates itself from what most have thought yoga to be, connected to a religious purpose or anything like that. There are a lot of spiritual aspects to the practice when you're involved in it. But it is a practice for the people. And actually, Urban Yoga calls the practice the people's practice for that reason.
Yeah.
That we are reclaiming indigenous ways, indigenous ideologies, relearning history, and identifying how much of a part culture and community land in the practice of the interest of yoga.
So when we talk about mindfulness, right, I think that's important as we go about day to day and really self-care. It's a part of self-care, but sometimes it goes very neglected.
You are completely correct. I lost a little bit of your sound, but I heard, I'm alluding to what you said.
I'll bring it back again. And I said, when we talk about mindfulness, right, and it's really a part of self-care, because when we're talking about really taking care of ourselves, you can't take care of yourself and not really deal with the mind too.
You're 100%. So you've done this work before, right? So you wake up in the morning, right? We talk about, I know you have, because you've explained it so well. Self-care is self-love, is self-efficacy, right? So every day, people have a different need to address in their bodies. And what mindfulness does is helps you become aware, just gentle awareness. Like, what is my body feeling now? What do I need at this moment? And that practice changes daily, right? It changes moment by moment. So the idea of integrated wellness and mindfulness and yoga is to identify what is speaking to you right now. Am I with my breath? Am I holding my breath? What's going on my lower back? How are my shoulders feeling? Maybe I need to do a shoulder roll. And just doing that, I adjusted my spine just now. But I felt that. Unless you heard it, it's a personal journey. But what mindfulness and yoga does, it's integrated systems and tools of wellness. So self-care, mindfulness, allowing your body to use whatever tools that you need to get you in the present moment, in a present state, to then identify what the next step is, instead of just reacting, but having an action plan of what you can do to ease dis-ease.
Ghylian Bell is joining us now. She's the CEO of the Urban Yoga Foundation, and talking about some of the work that goes on there. Talk about feeding. We've been talking about feeding our last couple shows, but talk to me about nutrition, because it's very healthy, and it's also a part of really creating that safe temple and that safe mind. So you do have nutrition programs as well, correct?
Yes, well, it's all about mindfulness, right? So when you think about the whole self, there's all aspects of that. What's my gut saying, right? The gut is our system of wellness. And I say this to people all the time. Nutrition is the most important thing, but mindfulness and moving the body, it's like living on love. There's something that's supportive that the body finds to do what it needs to do anyway. And I say this because I think of our ancestors, and I think of how we had enslaved people, sharecroppers, eating crap, right? They weren't eating the best foods. But they were out in the sun every day. They were moving their bodies. They were detoxing what their bodies did not need, so that the vitamins and the minerals from the earth gathered in the feet, right? You had bare feet on earth. They were getting their minerals. The body is an amazing system. We don't do the kinds of things like that anymore. We're not in the sun getting vitamin D, which is actually the regulator for all the other things that we need our bodies to work on. B, C, like A, they need the D vitamin. And we don't get the sun like we need to get the sun. So we don't have the same capacity of that nutrition. We're not walking barefoot on the earth in soil that is nutritious anymore, right? The soil has been depleted, right? So we're not getting these things the same way. We need nutrition. We need nutrition that has no GMOs, that is organic. When I was growing up, my grandmother who was a part of the Great Migration, we had a backyard, a garden. She grew watermelon, snap peas, tomatoes. Everything came from our garden. We don't really have that anymore. We need to get back to growing our own food, having agency with what we're putting in our bodies so the body can recognize what it is that we need. Just mindfulness. Like, what is this? Food is medicine. We say that came from Hippocrates, but actually, Hippocrates learned from Imhotep. Imhotep was an amazing physician, polymath, genius. And this radical sense of education through health, this wisdom of us identifying where it came from, is a part of what we digest. It's a part of the food that we need.
Yeah. Well, Julian Bell, it's been great talking to you. Certainly, for people who want more information, I'm getting ready to give them the information on how to reach out to you. But thank you for giving us some insight and the work that you're doing at the Urban Yoga Foundation.
Thank you so much. Good to share space.
All righty. Well, for more information, you can visit the website at urbanyogafoundation.org and then follow them on Facebook at Urban Yoga Foundation. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Open.
I remember when the Bronx did not really have a media outlet properly representing the people of the Bronx.
BronxNet provides for the community by being a community where people can be empowered to share their voices.
We are in a really great place technologically. We've got all the resources that we need to be effective.
Whether it's through cameras, storytelling, editing, we have provided those services for 30 years.
BronxNet's mission is to be a voice for the community.
To educate, to inform, and to inspire.
And you can be a part of it. We've built studios for you.
And welcome back. As tension in the Gaza Strip continues to mount, the Gaza Strip, home to over 1 million children growing up through endless wars, is certainly not what a child could hope for. The Angel of Gaza film follows a Gazan child as he navigates from despair to hope, from losing a home to gaining a new one. And here now to tell us more is the filmmaker and Gaza ambassador, Ahmed Mansour, and we thank you so much for being with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And obviously this documentary comes at a critical time in the life of those who are out in Gaza. You yourself, a refugee from Gaza, but you decided that you wanted to really tell the story. So tell me about what you were hoping to capture here.
I mean, you described it. There are 2 million people live in the Gaza Strip. Half of them are children. And maybe one of the things that I was trying to tell through this film is to shed some light on the innocents that are lost in this war. When the Gaza Strip is talked about in the media, especially in the United States, is always talked about in a political context. It's talked about in a terrorism context, in Hamas context, in bombing and killing. But actually, there is no the conversation is yet to happen about the over 1 million children that live in the Gaza Strip now at the worst possible circumstances. There is no electricity, there is no clean water, there is no basic needs, diapers, clothes. They're in tents, they're cold, they are starving. And it seems that the politicians here, they love hearing themselves talking about, you know, the political context that they barely know anything about to begin with.
Yeah, we do a lot of talking, and we understand that this is conversation for so many people on this side because we don't know what it is to live in the Gaza Strip. For somebody such as yourself who's had that experience, detail for us, what is it living like over there during a wartime condition?
Well, I am the product of war. My grandparents were living in a village called Al-Batana outside Jerusalem. In 1948, the Zionist gangs came and massacred the men. And my grandfather, he was 15 at that time. He managed to escape with his woman. and they ended up as refugees in a refugee camp called Al-Maghazi in the middle of the Gaza Strip, in which I was born. So I was born in 1992. The first thing I kind of remember living was the second Intifada in 2000, and then the 2007 when Israel imposed the blockade, and then the 2008 war, the 2012, the 2014, and then 2015, I decided to come to the United States to tell the story. So, war, what does it mean? Let's visualize a little bit. 2 million people are cramped in a tiny strip. They have the Mediterranean behind them, and all the other 3 parts of the borders are surrounded by Israel, and from the south is surrounded with Egypt, and Egypt is completely complicit in the siege imposed in the Gaza Strip. So you have almost every 2 years, when we try to build a life, they come to mow the grass. They come and they bomb the infrastructure, they bomb the schools, they bomb the mosques, they bomb the universities, and we build again. It's been happening since the year of 2000. I don't know how the United States, being the sponsor of the State of Israel, could answer us. When will it be enough? Now we're talking about over 13,000 children being killed. Isn't that enough?
That's a number, and it's a devastating number. I want to take you to your movie and your documentary, because as you talk about 13, the number being killed, I talk about another issue, family separation, because that's huge. And we hear sometimes families being separated, and we know of families that have been separated, but how huge is family separation over in Gaza?
Well, that's the reason I kind of told the story, is to connect it to the American, let's say, political landscape with the family separation down in the southern border, so that the Americans could understand. So since the year 2000, the freedom of movement in the Gaza Strip has been impossible. For example, it took me 3 years to gain a permission from the Israeli authorities to leave. And that goes to the father of the main character in the film, Ayman. So the story of the film is that, Ayman in 2012, he was very smart. He got a scholarship to do his master's in the United States in trauma, to come back and treat the children of Gaza. But in 2014, when he finished, a war broke out in Gaza. So he couldn't come back. And he left behind 2 kids, Malak, a daughter, and Karim, a son. They were just 2 years and 1 year. And then the Ayman here decided to apply for asylum because he couldn't stay, he didn't want it to be illegal with his overstay. So, and guess what? The process, as Malak narrates in the film, it took 7 years. 7 years for a family, for kids to see their fathers for the first time. So, and this is one story of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands in the Gaza Strip. If you go out, it's very hard to come back. And if you want to gain a visa, it's almost impossible. So this is another kind of layer that the politicians here, or the story, when it gets told about Gaza, they don't talk about these details. They talk just about the political stuff, the strategic partnership with Israel, our ally, but they really forget the human story.
Right. Well, there's a special human story that you're telling, and that story will be told on March the 2nd. For those people who want to find out more about your screening, how do they go about getting there?
So we are partnering with Friends, the Quakers in New York City. You are welcome to just show up or sign up if you would like. This is truly a moment where we need to come together, and Americans have to hear from the Gazans themselves about our story. Our story have been told by non-Palestinians in the United States, and that's why we are getting to the level we are getting to. We're living in a genocide now, televised genocide. And the first act of liberation is for us to grab back our story and tell it in a way that we could connect with the hearts of the Americans, because the Americans are not neutral. The Americans are part of the problem, unfortunately, and they have to come and share and listen to what is happening from those who lived it, so that maybe we could find a solution.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have to continue this conversation. I got to leave it here because we're out of time, but certainly not out of definitely conversation. Got to have you back. But thanks so much for being with us, and congratulations again. Screening on March the 2nd. Thanks again.
Of course.
All righty. Well, I want to let you know, if you want more information, go ahead and visit the website at felicityofilms.com, and then follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Gaza_ambassador. Don't go anywhere. We got more Open coming up right after this.
19.7% of Bronxites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city, and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak, and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
And welcome back. Bike New York is a not-for-profit organization offering free bike education programs in all 5 boroughs annually. Now, they instruct over 30,000 people of all ages through various events, including the TD 5-Borough Bike Tour. And here now, and sharing more, we've got the chair of the board at Bike New York. We've got Leonard Diamond. And Leonard, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me on.
An exciting time. And as we talk about the TD Borough Bike Tour, every year, more and more, you continue to grow.
That's the goal. We started, the first bike tour was in 1977, and there were only 250 people on it. It was a very small affair, it was an experiment, but it grew very quickly, and we're well over 30,000 people each year now. And the proceeds from the TD 5-Borough Bike Tour fund all of the programming that Bike New York runs in New York City every year. We teach adults and children how to ride bicycles. We teach people how to improve their bicycling skills and how to ride on streets in New York City. We have a program at the Brooklyn Navy Yard where we're training formerly incarcerated individuals to become bike mechanics, and they get jobs working with City Bike. We are now involved with the Department of Transportation and the Department of Education, bringing bicycle education, safety skills and such to middle schoolers all throughout New York City, with the goal being eventually for every middle schooler to take this course so that we teach them how to ride a bike safely in New York City.
When we talk about riding bikes in New York City, we know the challenges that come with that, both on the sidewalk, on the street. Bikers face a whole lot of challenges. Talk to us about the education that people get as a part of this program.
Well, I mean, it starts off, we have a lot of adults who, growing up in New York City, never learned how to ride a bike. So we start with those people. We actually have a curriculum. We have a system set up where we provide the adults bicycles. Children have to bring their own. We basically take the pedals off the bicycles and teach them how to balance and teach them how to ride. But then we give more advanced courses about riding on the streets of New York City, riding, commuting to work, riding at nighttime, with giving people the specific skills for how to do these things. And it's hands-on, in person, and it gives people an opportunity to use bicycles for recreation, but also importantly in New York City for transportation. It's really, for a large segment of the population in New York City, bicycle is a viable way to get to work, as City Bike has shown. And also, taking the subway or the buses for people with lower incomes can get rather expensive. And a bicycle is a much lower cost way of doing this for them. And it can free up money to spend on other things that are important to them. So we think it has a great impact on people all over the city.
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, bikes are essential in New York City. I don't think that you could even call New York City the city without having that bike component that's out there. So for people who want to be a part of the 5-borough bike tour, what's the requirement?
You need a bicycle. It's really very simple. You need a bicycle. We require you have a helmet, and you have to register for the tour. You can find the registration at bike.nyc. It's very simple. The bike tour is 40 miles. Most adults who have exercise on some regular basis can do the 40 miles. I would recommend doing some training beforehand so that you enjoy it better. The major hills on the bike tour are the 59th Street Bridge and the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. So it's very doable. It's a great way to see the city on roads that you can usually not be on except in a motor vehicle. And it's kind of like a 40-mile party. And we have people coming from all over the city, but all over the region and all over the world. So it's a great way to meet other people, and people have a blast at the bike tour. We have a significant percentage of the people who do the tour come back every year to do it because it's so much fun.
And when we talk about a tour like this, obviously you make you have the opportunity to make a couple stops while in this 40-mile gathering. I know one of the stops was at one time down there, Nathan's, and that's the big spot, July 4th, and people get an opportunity to stop there. Is that correct?
Well, actually, the very first year we did the tour, 1977, which was a very different event. It was an experiment, and it was 60 miles long. It was with 2 police cars and everybody else in between them. We stopped at a Nathan's in the Bronx. They were the only sponsor of the tour that year, and their participation was they gave everyone hot dogs. So I don't know if that store is there still anymore. I forget exactly where it was, but in the Bronx, we have a rest stop. We have a rest stop, a water station in the Bronx every year. There's 5 other rest stops along the tour where we have water for people, we have restrooms, we have bike repair, and we have food and snacks. And then at the end of the tour in Staten Island on Fort Wadsworth, there's a complete rest area with a stage and music and food vendors. And if it's a nice day, people just hang out, and it's like a concert out on the grass. Yeah. So it's a fun day.
And so when we talk about learning how to ride a bike, obviously it's not assumed that all New Yorkers do know how to ride one. What's the actual time frame for a person to actually be able to learn and then be able to jump in and be able to participate like on a bike tour?
Well, the vast majority of people can get the hang of riding a bike within an hour or 2 under our program. It isn't terribly difficult. Then you need to practice and get the hang of it more. Before you do something like the tour, you'd have to spend a few months practicing. We do have a program called Bike Ambassadors, where we take students of ours who learned how to ride a bike, and they come and we have them come ride on the bike tour for us. So it's very doable.
Yeah. And so if somebody wants to take part in that, how do they go about that?
Well, again, you have to you'd have to participate in our education program. And again, the portal into everything is bike.nyc.
Yeah. And so as you look at biking right now, how has biking changed through the years? I mean, before it used to be highly recreational. I think now, as you alluded to, when we talk about biking, it's almost like it's the way of life for so many people.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of come full circle from where it had been before the advent of cars. 25, 30 years ago, bicycling was purely looked at as a children's activity. Bicycles were toys. And there were small groups of people who rode recreationally. There's some bike clubs in the city, but it wasn't a large group. Now, if you look at the explosion of micro-mobility, bicycles, e-bikes, it really it frees up people to get around New York City in ways that are so much easier than what we had before. I mean, cars are wonderful tools, but in a dense urban environment like New York City, there's not enough room for them. There's a lot of problems associated with them, and it's not practical for everyone to be getting around like that, and it's not desirable for climate change and for many other reasons. The bicycle really, just as evidenced by City Bike and the popularity, the numbers of people that are using and the number of rides every day on City Bike, bicycles are great transportation tools. And it's growing in New York City, and in return, as the city has started to build out the bike infrastructure, bike lanes, it kind of it's chicken and egg thing, and the bike use is growing more and more. And Bike New York is also advocating for more bike infrastructure in the city, and we're looking to get it up into places like the Bronx, where there's not as much as I think there needs to be, and where it'll enable the residents of the Bronx to use bicycles more and more safely.
Yeah. Leonard, we got to leave it there, buddy, but thank you so much for being with us, and best wishes on this coming TD 5-Borough Bike Tour. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thanks. Hope for sunny weather. Come on out with us. You want to do it? Let me know. We'll get you going.
All right, no problem. I got to be in touch. I think there's some things I want to do. Yes, sir. All right. Well, listen, if you want more information, visit the website at bike.nyc, and then also follow them on social media at Bike New York. I want to let you know we come to the end of our show today. I want to thank all of our guests for joining us. Most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of today's show, you can catch Recablecast on Optimum's Channel 67, Verizon Files Channel 2133, or watch us anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. Now, you can always catch a brand new episode of Open. My girl, Rena Valentine, is here every Friday. She's Miss Cafe con Leche. Go find out what you want to know about that. She's there on Friday. Come join her. And listen, you usually see me here on Wednesdays, and we'll look forward to seeing you on an upcoming Wednesday. That about wraps up this episode for us. I am Daren Jaime, telling you to make sure to keep this channel wide open, saying take care, God bless, and see you soon.